This is Betamax 80. I thought that the best way to introduce this video would be to just show you the gem itself. Almost 19 years later. It's new. It's sealed. Someone thought about opening it. It's got a scratch in it. But it's sealed. I've got my license key. It's for OEM, so I have to be getting it with a computer that's been built. But that's alright, because I'm doing it myself. So I think it counts. Thank you, eBay. So this is the next project. What made this project happen? This little beast. This little beast sounds amazing for Windows sound, but manages to crash the system in Windows XP every time you try and use something that uses the 3D sound effects. I think we can say it's incompatible. But the story on the street is that the last Windows 98 drivers are massively good. Apparently it allowed for downloadable sound fonts, because this does have a sound font bank. It's got a full 4 megabytes or something, but to be honest with you, that's what we were talking about with the Sound Blaster Live at the same time, so no small feat that it has it, especially if it uses a different kind of sound bank. And I want to try it. And I noticed a trend with everything that works with this card, games, software, etc. It also likes to use 3DFX Glide. Guess what I have at home? A 3DFX Voodoo 3 3500 TV. It's boxed, it's been stored very, very carefully for a very long time. I remember buying it in a fire sale at PC World. It's the same vintage as this, but unfortunately I took it out of the box because I used it because it was a wonderful card. But anyway, I think these two will go together marvellously. Right, the build. Here's a bit of randomness. It's a China classic, because I have no idea who makes this card. It has a long obsolete Intel network chip on it. I know it's long obsolete because the last drivers for this card are for Windows Server 2003 and for Vista. Oh, 2008 because of Vista, but you get the idea. It's a, you can't tell because this camera's a bit rubbish, but it's an 8245. So I don't know if that's a real Intel chip or if somebody is copy manufacturing it in China. It's entirely possible, who knows. It says copyright Intel 2002, manufactured March 2015 on the chip itself, so who knows what's going on. Look at the wonderful branded DW1000 capacitors on there. That is just lovely. The rest of the card is absolute junk. It's hilarious. I've never seen such, I don't know what the word is, so many discrete capacitors and that kind of thing on a card rather than proper chip on board stuff. It's really odd. But I bought it because this is a massively compatible card and I know it works with Windows 98. And why do I want this card? Because it's gigabit. It's really hard to find a good gigabit Ethernet card that's PCI and works with Windows 98. These are a tough set of orders. A PCI gigabit network card that has Windows 98 drivers. That's a tall order. And thanks to China manufacturer, for £6.50 this could be yours. It is mine. I'm wondering what other treats I'll be getting from China. You know what? It will be what I require. It's hilarious. This is it, by the way. This is the packaging. It came in a bag. It's clearly not been used. You can tell it's new, but that's it. There's no CD. You work it out yourself. Luckily, Intel still keep all of their drivers on their site, so no archive.org stuff with this particular card, but there has been with other stuff already, I have to be honest with you. On its way is a, oh, I don't know what it's called now, Safecom. I think it's Safecom. It's based on a Ralink chip, now a MediaTek chip, and it's a 54G wireless card, 54G plus, very important, 54G plus, tiny bit. Again, it's to do with Windows 98. For some reason, Windows 98's mind was blown with anything faster than wireless G standard. So that's what I'm getting, because I want to get the I basically want to get the best communications output possible while I can still get them. I mean, remember that card was £6.50. This other card was, I think, maybe £9, but it's brand new in the box. It's the same kind of randomness. I had to go on archive.org to find the drivers for it, because MediaTek are pretending this thing never existed. So that's great. So we're looking at drivers from 2007 if you want Windows 98, or drivers from 2010 for the bleeding edge. So that's wonderful. I'm glad archive.org exists. What else have we got? I'm not very well, by the way. I've got a really stuffy nose, and that's only the half of it. But I'm doing this video because it's cool anyway. I did my son's, and it's cheaper to buy a brand new case and get loads of adapters than it is to get an old case. What I've done about that is I've got an old motherboard, so I've actually got proper IDE controllers on there, which is important for Windows 98 because it just blows a gasket with serial ATA, which has been the standard since, I don't know, for at least 10 years now. So it's a problem. We're looking old. Oh, and the 3DFX Voodoo 3, Windows 98 era stuff. Wonderful. Forgot about this. The Voodoo 3 only works on old AGP because it's 3.3 volts. Apparently there was suddenly a new AGP later on that was 1.5 volts, and the connector is different, and the two don't work together, and you can blow the motherboard. So that's exciting. So basically I'm stuck to a sort of slightly older than bleeding edge. It's hilarious really, because nothing's very bleeding edge for Windows 98, but anyway, slightly older than bleeding edge motherboard, probably for my own good really. So I'm stuck with a it's terrible with a VIA KT266A chipset board. The A is very important because apparently VIA had been making a bag of absolute shite around the turn of the millennium, and the 266A was the only one out of that era of motherboards, that the Athlon XP era of motherboards, to actually not be a bag of shite. So so that's a good thing. Anyway, these £1.16 each. So this is the power. The problem that I've got with a modern case is the power, not the data, but the power connection. So I know these cases, the reason for buying these cheap cases, they've actually got floppy disk connectors and Molex connectors coming off of the power supply, but not all of them are. So just to make damn sure, the rest of them are going to be Molex too by the time I'm finished with them. £1.19 each, these. £1.19, I can handle that. You just plug that in the back of the actual device, and that goes on the SATA power cable. I can handle £1.19 all day long. Lovely. Just to be sure as well, I've got a floppy one as well. Same price, £1. Oh, I think it was more. £1.69. Tough gig. Cable involved, I don't know. Next piece of wonderfulness. Memory. This is hilarious. This is so funny. Maplin outlet. Brand new. 1 gigabyte, 1 gigabyte, and yes, it's tiny, but that's all the motherboard will support. 2 gigabytes is this motherboard in question maxed out, and every motherboard of that time maxed out as well. So I'm maxing out the board. 150, 150, Maplin outlet, £3 postage. So £3 per module of memory. Absolutely incredible. It's DDR266 1 gigabyte, because that's what the board needs. Yes, it's ancient. Yeah, yes, I know. And this was the same price. I bought these thinking I was going to buy a faster board at one point. This is 233. Sorry, this is 333 megahertz, but all to do with the AGP and the Voodoo 3. I can't use a faster board because it doesn't all work out. But these are 512 megs, so these might be more Windows 98 friendly. keeping them handy, hoping that the board will use them underclocked. £1.50 each again. It's hilarious. £1.50 memory for days. It's brilliant. Brand new. Absolutely brand new. It's so weird. Oh, and just to say as well, this isn't value RAM. This is decent Kingston. This would have been bloody expensive at the time. It's proper Kingston memory. £1.50 napkin outlet. It's hilarious. What else have we got? CPU. This is, I believe, used. Doesn't look it really, but I think it's been dramatically cleaned. It's come from Germany. I haven't been able to buy a new 266 megahertz fast processor, so this is kind of, from what I understand, again, Windows 98 fastest possible. It's an actual 2 gigahertz performance rated 2400 AMD Athlon 266 megahertz front side bus, 256k of RAM. It's the old kind, but it's the best for Windows 98 apparently. So looking forward to that. And of course, brand new heatsink and fan. Cost me about £4, I think, and it is a ball bearing one. I made the mistake of buying one of these Acacias that were sleeve bearing, and I forgot how awful they were. There's not a lot of choice these days, to be honest. It's not like I can get a fancy gaming one because they're just not around. The ones that are around look absolutely disgusting. It's like they've been smoke-filled homes. But this is brand new, so it feels solid enough. There's a lot of aluminium in there. We'll see. Unfortunately, here's what I wanted to use. Again, this is new and boxed. Look at this. This is a beast. That's the heatsink and fan, all original. And can you see the Athlon XP sticker? I want the sticker. It's cool. This is one of their beasts. This is the 333 megahertz. It's 512k of cache. That must have been an absolute beast, honestly. Must be an absolute beast. 512k of cache and 2.8 gigahertz performance rated. It's something like 2.084 gigahertz actual performance. So this is actually a more advanced chip. This actually gets more performance out of the same clock speed as that slower one. But just on my motherboard, I did the sums and it would end up being 1.7 gigahertz. So this is actually the more advanced processor in terms of my particular board's needs. So this is possibly going to have to be sold on. But my goodness me, 2016, this is a copyright 1999 processor. I never expected to find this. Isn't that incredible? £10. Isn't that incredible? I think it's amazing. There's a lot of that in this video. Like new stuff. It's incredible. Right. Next thing. This motherboard. Box is tatty. Fair enough. But oh no, before the motherboard. Before the motherboard. This was a gamer's delight at the time, apparently. This was the thing. This was the airflow delight. Round cables. These are ridiculous. They're like hoses. They're literally like a length of hose pipe in between, or some sort of industrial electric cabling. Floppy disk cable. Hard disk cable. I'll show you what these replace, because the originals, you know, the original styles in the box, it's the ribbon cables. This was the gamer enthusiast option. Apparently it's really good for airflow, which makes sense because now we have SATA cables because of that. But my gosh, it's massive. So I've got two of these because you've got two IDE channels, obviously. Sorry, 4 channels and 2, I don't know what you call them, 2 ports, 4 channels, something like that. Anyway, it's nice, isn't it? These weren't much either. These, I think these might have been a full £2 each. I think they may be £2 each. But yeah, we're getting modern. We're getting the best that was possible. We were going for the best. And yeah, new, Acacia, new. You can still choose your colour as well, believe it or not. Right, here's what I was going to show you next. Now the box is a bit ratty, but don't let that fool you. This motherboard's never been used. And look at this. Look at that. Blast from the past. I swore 10 years ago I'd never use these guys again. But here I am. Because this board has the best chipset and the best options available to me for this build. I had a nightmare time finding a BIOS update for this. The reason I need the BIOS update is because that processor is one of the last ones on the 266 MHz bus. The 2.4 and 2.6, apparently there was one, were the last ones on that bus, so it needs the BIOS flash to be recognised. But I found it on a China site, random China site, where you have to kind of press the buttons and hope you're not going to download some malware. It is a, yes, it's an M811, there we are, and I'm very lucky because it's it's actually an LU in America. I think it's the only one they sold in the UK, but it's an LU, which means it's got LAN and USB 2. And this beast has got the 0.95 specification. Remember Windows 95? You know, nothing worked on it, maybe a keyboard and mouse, bit like that. I've got the 0.95 specification of USB 2 on 6 ports. 6 ports of almost USB 2. A bit full on for PC chips, not their style at all. But everything is here. I had to congratulate the previous owner on how they kept everything. They told me it's never ever been used. It was a side option. These are the cables. You might remember these. Big flat cables, and you had to have them in a U shape, like going to the first drive of the chopper and then back to the second drive. They are not easy to work with, but they are what you use because that's what the drives use. So it's as simple as that. I have the original CD. Now that's a treat in itself. That's a treat because I remember buying new PC chips boards that didn't come with a CD. Very useful to have it. And the manual, which is actually not bad. It's actually not bad. Normally these used to be dreadful. Absolutely dreadful, but this is not bad. Really impressive. And I've added a few things. I've added another one of my 25p PC speakers, because you never know when it's going to post beep at you, especially with the PC chips. I bunged in one of my capsules of CPU lube. Oh, backplane. Thank you guys. And at some point, I don't know if it was from the factory, at some point someone's chucked in a spare CR2032 for the CMOS. It's nice. I don't know who did that, but it's a nice thought actually, because you never do know what's going to happen with these. And then I've got my connector cables, because you never know what you're going to connect to your sound card, and the sound card is such a old school beast. It has all the connectors. It has a modem connector and a PC speaker connector and a CD audio connector, so I've got them all. This one's probably more likely to be the CD audio connector because it's got the extra connector styles. These are a bit more old school, but this would work for PC speaker. It's quite exciting. Board's red. Very expensive for PC chips. Red board, unheard of. They like their nasty brown. That's what they like, their nasty, nasty brown. But no, it's actually a pretty good board for them. It's pretty, I don't know what that is. CPU, oh, CPU fan. Look at that. Full ATX as well. Full ATX. Quite a bit on the back. I've got the original Fire audio. Yes, it has got the LAN on board, but it's a 10100 LAN, and I wanted to get gigabit on there because I wanted to get the sort of like the maximum communication throughput possible, while I could still get the components. But yeah, there is sound and audio on there, bless it, and it's got some sort of Aureal A3D 1.0 dodgy conversion on there. Who knows what's going on? I'm getting a modem for this as well. You see, this is a CNR. I thought it was an AMR slot, and I thought that was that, but no, this is newer than that. The AMR slot was first, and then we had the CNR slot, Communications Network Riser, and I'm getting the wonderfully unreliable PC-Tel fewest components possible modem for that slot, because basically I wanted to make use of the slot. Who knows if I'm going to need to dial up at some point in my life? I very much doubt it. But I wanted to use these contemporary items. It was contemporary to the board to have that modem option, so I'm going to have that modem option populated while I can still get one. You can tell that this is very much only just the time to get these things, because the stuff's so cheap now that you just know it's not going to be viable for anyone to sell soon, and it's just not going to be made anymore. I know that because if you try and get anything older than this, anything for an early Pentium, you're not going to find anything new. I am just about finding new things for this, only just. He's putting everything back in the box. Only just. And this was an absolute fluke. Somebody who's also an enthusiast bought several board options and just didn't go with this one at the time, so that's why I get a new board. I'm very lucky. I've never seen a retail PC Chips board before, by the way. They didn't really do retail. They were very keen to give you a pallet load. It's quite funny, really. Quite expensive at the time as well, I think. I think this was an £80 or £90 board at the time. And it's a lot of money. £80, £90 boards now are still not cheap. Are still not commonplace, let's say. You're buying a gamer performance board even now. Also, new gaming peripherals for my new game port on the Aureal card. What I wanted to go for was the most advanced controllers that just used the game port and didn't plug in, because it seems to be a problem when they plug into power. So this is a tiltable sort of gyroscopic gamepad from CiT, popular one. That hasn't been used inside this box. And this, I love this. This is exactly as I remember them. A Wingman Extreme Digital 3D with that amazing semi-transparent base. It looks exactly like this. This is wonderful. It feels great. And as it says, it's got a twist handle, so it's a bit like the gamepad. It's got sort of further options as well as a point of view. This is a lovely controller. None of these are expensive. It's just about trying to get authentic experiences for me, really. Right, so the case. By the way, I haven't talked about drives yet. Right, well, two sides to that. Firstly, I've got an IDE. I think they're going to be 133 because they're very late IDE peripherals, because they're from my shuttle computer, the one I talked to you about a few weeks ago, that went kaput in the middle of me trying to revitalise it. So 2007 vintage. I've got a hard disk, 500 gig hard disk, which I hope is going to be ATA 133 because the board supports ATA 133. DVD rewriter with LightScribe nonetheless, and the floppy disk drive. So that's cool. Second thing is that there's a whole resurgence of special equipment coming from China at the moment, very cheaply, to adapt modern flash memory, example 1 and 2, USB key, SD card. They're relevant, trust me, and using them with old hardware. Firstly, there is the now partly famous in the right circles Gotek USB Floppy Drive Emulator. You plug one of these in, a 2 gig one would do. This is overkill, definitely. 2 gig one would do. And it emulates 1000 floppy disks on a USB stick, and it emulates them completely. You can make certain of one of these 1000 images bootable into DOS. You can install systems off of them, so you can install DOS and Windows off of the disk images. Everything. They are floppy disks as far as Windows is concerned, and DOS, and your BIOS. And it'll changes with a push button. There's a little LED display, and it says 099, and you just press and you choose the floppy disk image. Really cool. And the relevance of this, believe it or not, is there is a version of SSD storage available where you buy one of these, you plug it into a little adapter with a little chip in it that's transparent to the computer itself. The BIOS sees it as a hard disk, the chip tells it what sectors it's reading, and it has an IDE connector on it. So you literally are using this as a hard disk. Obviously, with a system like I have, it's best to have a high speed. This is a class 10, so this isn't bad, but a high speed disk, because you're looking at 90 megabits a second, something like that then, so you're wanting a performance version of one of these. But you know what, I think it will still be amazing for booting up Windows in comparison to an actual hard disk, so I'm looking forward to seeing what this does. There's actually 2 variants, and I've ordered both of them because they're £3 each. This is the amazing thing, £3 each. There's one of them that is a little bit more basic and is literally in line with the cable, so you literally just stick this little board on the cable where it sits. And there's an external version that has a PCI bracket like the sound card and the network card, and you actually have an external slot, so you can actually change these over, so you can actually interchange your SSD, if you like, as and when, on the exterior of the device, which I think is absolutely amazing. And it's got little indicator lights then as well, so you know what it's doing. Really, really cool. Really cool that you can actually just adapt one of these to an IDE hard disk for £3. I think it's brilliant. It's going to be very interesting. So let's both of us together look at the case I opted for. I've gone back to the wonderful boys at CiT again. Do you want to know how much this one cost? Under £21. It's cheaper than the desktop I use for the XP machine, and this is bigger. This is a Midi ATX, and I needed it to be Midi ATX because that's the only way you get the, well, partly because it's a full ATX board. That's one thing I forgot at the time. I thought it was a micro. Full ATX board, that's one thing. Secondly, it's the only way you get your 6 expansion slots instead of 4. So here we are. This is CiT. Does it say it anywhere? No. It's a CiT 1018. So the XP computer I have, I'll actually see if the webcam will stretch today, is a CiT 1016. This is great for old-fashioned builds, partly because the power supply is, as I've mentioned before, a more old-fashioned power supply. Plain and reliable. I'm fine with that, honestly. Old-fashioned power supply, which is actually what I want. Not good for a modern gaming system, but great for what I want. And the looks are clean, and there's a lot of space inside, and it's not difficult to build in. My only reservations are really the lack of screws provided, and the fact that once you take out an expansion bay, it's gone for good, because they have these nasty push-out expansion bays. But remember, that one cost me £26, and this one, which is a larger case, is costing me £5 less. Now, the other thing about this is that it has the USB 2 and sound on board. Now I can use the USB 2 because the board supports that. It has a header, so I'll be able to use that. And the sound, I don't know yet. The sound we will see. I'm trying to work out whether the header is going to be a problem. It may not work on the Aureal. I don't know, I like a challenge though. We'll see. It's, who cares, really? It doesn't look bad at the moment. It doesn't look bad at all, actually. I mean, I know it's just paint, but there's nothing not to like about it, is there, really, for £21? Right. It is bigger, I think. Interestingly though, the box is the same size. So I guess that means they package it less. I wonder if there's any dents in this one, because that's the problem I had, and apparently it's a common problem with these cases because they're not really packaged well for transit. So let's see. Okay. Seems to have a bottom case fan, which is interesting. Feels like it's got a PSU in it. It said it would do. That's another thing. £21 with a power supply, and it's their own power supply, which seems to be better than most of what you get. That's all right. That is all right, if you ask me. Is it bigger? Yeah, it's very slightly bigger. It's possibly one drive bay higher, but it was required for this motherboard, so that's all right. It's my cooling. Has actually got the option to put case fans in. They've actually put cutouts in for case fans. So there's actually a lot of cooling potential. There's that one. Case fan vent at the bottom. And then a rear case fan. They haven't supplied one in the back of this one. They did in the other one, but that's okay. I've actually got 2 case fans. Just wondering what would be best in terms of cooling. I don't know, we'll see. It's interesting, isn't it? Much as before, switching power supply. I quite like the fact it switches. I quite like that. You know you've got isolation with that. Yes, it's a cheap power supply, but you know what? It's not bad. It's not bad. And as I say, the rails are to the capacity that I'd want them to be in an older build. So that's fine with me in this case. The cutouts are a bit unusual. You can tell that it's sort of an extension of their normal pressing machine, because 4 of them have got full slots and 3 of them haven't for some reason. But I'm sure I can work around that. That's okay. Yeah. It's alright, I think. Yeah. It'll do the job. It certainly looks newer than a Windows 98 machine. I mean, it's not beige. That's for sure. It's not beige. It's alright, I think. Yeah. It's exactly what the picture showed. That power button is quite cool. Apparently it glows blue. It's quite curved. And the other thing I like about these cases is that both of them have a reset button, which is an unusual thing these days. But not a bad idea if you're using DOS mode or Windows old. Reset button built right in there. It's really good. Also, 3.5-inch floppy drive bay. That's getting really hard to find. Modern cases are generally not being made with a 3.5 bay at all anymore, and I really wanted that because to start with for floppy drive, later on for the Gotek Floppy Drive controller. Let's hope it gets here. But yeah, I wanted that to be there. Yeah, so that's how things are going to go. There's probably not going to be much more to say until about just gone Christmas. I might do an update for Mums if I'm able to. Going to be interesting, this build. It's going to be interesting. Speak to you soon. Bye.